Growing up, children always view their parents as protection, perfection, and invincibility. As children, we are so dependent on our parents. We are so happy to be. Because why wouldn't we want to live with, be comforted by, and spend every waking moment with the people we look up to the most? It's like a basketball player living with Michael Jordan or a poet with Shakespeare. I believe that the word parent used to mean something much different to us when we were children than it does today as modern teenagers. The word parent used to mean fun. It used to mean safety, and it used to mean hope. Hope that one day I'll grow big and strong like my dad, who is hands down the strongest man alive, and kind and gentle like my mom, who'd always give me that one extra Oreo despite the status quo. But as we grow older, we become more aware and more far-seeing. And we realize that our parents are humans just like you and I, and your dad probably isn't the strongest man alive, and your mom, in some situations, she may actually be mean. And it is this vulnerability that can actually break down the child-parent relationship. Because it brings us to the realization that our parents, they might be selfish, they might be unjust, or they just might be wrong. But for me, it strengthened my relationship with my father because it brought me to the question, if he's not a superhero, then how does he do all of this? My dad is my hero. My dad was born in a lower middle-class family in Manchester, Connecticut. He wasn't the best of kids, usually getting in trouble, not thinking or even caring about the future in front of him. And this was because his parents worked very hard, and they weren't really there to parent him at all. But he was lucky. Because of his talents in football, he was able to be granted a scholarship for a postgraduate year at Cheshire Academy in Connecticut. And although this year led to the end of his football career because of too many concussions, it did lead to his acceptance to the University of Connecticut. And this was special, because my dad was the only person in his family to ever graduate high school, let alone even thinking about going to college. So now, my more mature dad, seeing the opportunity in front of him and the gift that had been granted to him, took it and attended the University of Connecticut. There he majored in physical therapy, graduating one of the top in his class, and then moved on to graduate school at the Russ Institute at NYU. He did this all out of his own pocket, and all out of his own motivation to make a name for himself. He didn't have parents pushing him or forcing him like many of us do. He didn't have competition between friends to be more successful. He did it out of his own drive to make a name for himself, and not many of us can say that. My dad then moved on to own many different practices in New York City and Pennsylvania, and still today at his most recent and probably most challenging in our home of Milford, PA. And now that you know my dad's life story, although impressive, isn't the reason why he's my hero. He's my hero because he's the best dad in all aspects of the word. He wasn't given much as a child or fathered at all, so he made it his goal, like many fathers in this room, to be there for his kids, no matter what barriers stood in the way. My dad works every single day. If he's not treating patients, he's usually doing landscaping outside, or fixing the septic system, or dealing with the many problems that come with a work staff made up of 20 women, which you can all imagine is pretty tough. And when he's at home, he's either doing financial accounts in the business or writing reports on patients. Now, See, my dad makes a good living, but he doesn't pay money for people to do things that he can do himself. He believes that all the hard work he puts into it, that he should put into the family. And he makes sure that my brothers, my mother, and I have everything we want or need. I don't want to sound like a spoiled kid because I'm not, but my dad has a problem with saying no. He believes that if I want something that is out of reach, he'll jump through 1,000 hoops to get it. It's an emotional burden on him if he doesn't. When I applied to Blair 2 years ago, it was my second chance. My chance to make up for all the mistakes that I made and to make a name for myself, like he once had. And I was accepted to Blair, but with no financial aid. And as a member of a middle-class family, with 2 brothers already in college, it would be a major sacrifice on my mom and dad. But my dad made it happen, and he wouldn't take no for an answer. Now, I don't want you to think that I love my dad because he gives me things. I love my dad because he shows me the value of them. And that when you do a job, you do it to perfection, the first time you do it. I've never met a man who works as hard as my dad and who can come home with a smile on his face and be a friend to his son, but also be a guide. And while guiding, he still enforces. And even though he's an enforcer, he still has an extremely open mind. And he will always stand up for me, no matter what I do or what I stand for. My dad is my hero because he cries every single time one of my brothers or I come home or leave for school. He once told me that he was a hard ass his entire life because growing up men weren't supposed to show emotion. And it shows me how much he truly cares if he can set his pride aside and admit that. My dad is my hero because he wears all these different hats in my life and acts in each different role in full attention. My dad has taught me how to work hard, but he's also taught me how to have fun. He's taught me how to be respectful and polite when it's necessary to stand up for myself. But most of all, my dad has shown me all the necessary qualities in being the greatest father. And no matter how far-seeing and prudent I become when I go to college and onward, my dad will always be my hero. Thank you.